He says he wants a relationship, but is he really ready? We're going to dive into this conversation today because a typical tale that is happening in our dating environment today are men who say they want a relationship only to begin to change their minds at some point later on down the road. Let me repeat that. These are men who claim that they want a relationship, but somehow they're not ready for a relationship. And we're going to dive into this today. You know, in the past, the perspective was oftentimes that when a man isn't ready, we look at it, he's just not that into you. In other words, it's the issue is that he doesn't like the person or doesn't feel a connection or is not feeling feelings for that person. And so it came up that story, he's not that into you. But maybe it has to do more with relationship readiness. Bump, 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 relationship readiness. See, human pair bonding is radically complicated, yet the prevailing narrative suggests that it's easy and that's all we need to do is have attraction and that the belief that chemistry equals relationship success. Let me repeat that, chemistry equals relationship success. You know what's interesting about attraction is that people that are attractive tend to have more options. Let's just be blunt. Some people call this the sexual market value. In other words, the more attractive a woman is, the more options she has. The more financially successful a man is, the more options he has. Well, there's probably a bit of truth to that, or there's a lot of truth to that. Because to some extent, we don't choose partners based on, well, let me rewind that. If chemistry and attraction is how we choose initially to enter into an exploration of a relationship, we're not really contemplating one of the most important fundamentals of a relationship, and that's someone's capacity, their desire, let me reframe that, their desire, their capacity, and a vision for a relationship. Desire, capacity, and vision for a relationship. Now, the reason why I say vision is a lot of people are rocking around with their heads cut off like chickens, you know? But Jonathan, I'm just told that I'm supposed to sit in my feminine energy and let men lead because they are the leaders of the relationship. Well, folks, if men were such great leaders of a relationship, why are people miserable? Why are 50% of marriages end divorce, first marriages, second and third marriages end at a 65 to 75% rate? Men are such great leaders. Well, why are they falling down on the job? Can someone message me why? Oh, well, it's the feminist movement. It's all the women's fault. Well, that's just another narrative just to evoke some fodder, just to evoke some controversy. You know, they oftentimes talk about in the dating realm, confidence and mystery seems to be the way that we approach the dating process. Be confident, be mysterious, because mystery builds attraction and confidence is very attractive. And yet the reality is most human beings are rather insecure on some level, or they are operating like zombies, unaware of their emotional dysfunctionality. Let me repeat that. They're walking around like zombies, unaware of their emotional dysfunctionality. Folks, if you're not familiar with my chart, the 3 types of people actively dating, okay, I'm just going to share this. By the way, the bottom says this is not a fact, it's merely an opinion. Roughly 20% of the population are what I call users. They seek short-term gain. They're love bombers, they're players, they're gold diggers, entitled people. They only care about themselves. And I say 60% of the population are spenders. What is a spender? They seek companionship, connection, sex, no direction, uncertainty, fearful, usually have a dysfunctional life. They spend time with you. You effectively are a placeholder. This is roughly 20 and 60%. And this is not a fact, it's merely an opinion. I say over here, 20% are grower builders. They seek long-term relationship. They're emotionally available. They have good relationship skills. They have their act together. Why is this so critically important? And what I said earlier, the zombies that are out in the dating marketplaces, they are unaware of who they really are. They're unaware of their capacity to actually be in a significant relationship. They are unaware. So when someone says they want a relationship, oftentimes they want that companionship. Occasionally, they want connection. Occasionally, they want sex as much as they can get it. And this is where casual relationships have been birthed. Casual relationships have been birthed because the significant percentage of the human population in the dating marketplace today are walking around like zombies. They don't know who they are. They're not operating from a place of integrity. So how are we going to differentiate between the person who's a spender, who says he wants a relationship, versus that grower builder who wants to actually build a life with someone? You see, companionship-based relationships is the prevailing norm. I know that's aggravating and painful to hear, but companionship-based relationships is the prevailing norm. Very few people enter into partnership-based relationship, teamwork-based relationships. And we're going to dive into this into a moment. So what does a relationship-ready man look like? It starts with he knows who he is as a person beyond the beyond the mask, beyond all the pretense. That takes a tremendous amount of self-awareness. So what does self-awareness look like in today's dating and marketplace? Number one is knowing your love attachment style. Oh, by the way, everything I'm sharing here is equal for women as well. So if any men are watching, what I'm sharing is not directed that there's anything wrong with you, or there's anything wrong with a woman. This is just the prevailing unconsciousness of the zombies out in the dating marketplace. So number one, knowing your love attachment style. If you have not read the book Wired for Love by Dr. Stan Tatkin, I highly recommend reading this book. How to understand your partner's brain and attachment style can help you diffuse conflict and build a secure relationship. You see, what is love attachment style? It's how we attach to another human being. Do we attach from a secure place or an insecure place? And while most of the authors claim that 50% of the population is secure, okay, I don't buy that shit. I honestly believe a very small percentage of people operate from secure. I believe that they operate from an insecure way of attaching to another person, whether it's an anxious preoccupied, whether it's a fearful avoidant, whether it's a dismissive avoidant, or a completely disorganized attachment person. I think most humans are rather attached at either a codependent or a counter-dependent way. Let me repeat that, a codependent or a counter-dependent way. If you haven't read the book Codependent No More by Betty Beatty, I highly recommend reading this so you can understand how our love attachment style and our dependencies oftentimes cause us to choose partners who are unhealthy for us. But Jonathan, you recommend all these books and I don't have time to read these books. That's overwhelming. I don't have time to learn and grow and learn who I am. Yeah, guess what? You, along with the majority of the population, are operating as emotional zombies. Someone write that in the chat box or write down the comment. Jonathan says emotional zombies. You know, we talk about emotionally unavailable. We talk about emotionally constipated. Let's talk about the emotional zombies out in the world today. But Jonathan, if someone's confident, that doesn't mean that they're a zombie. First off, confidence is oftentimes bravado. Confidence oftentimes is a mask to the deep pain inside a person. So number one, relationship readiness is centered around knowing thyself, particularly in your love attachment style. Number two is self-responsibility, recognizing that you know what triggers you. Like, I'm very clear on the shit that triggers me. I've written them down 1,000 times. I know when I get triggered when I'm interacting with people. Now, thankfully, I have a circle of friends that we share with one another. And by the way, triggered simply might mean, you know, it's something rubs you the wrong way. You feel out of alignment. You feel a disconnect. That's all a trigger is. A trigger is a tap on the shoulder saying, hey, something doesn't feel right. Now, does that mean we have to vomit all of our triggers to someone? No. But sometimes a deep trigger requires some deep exploration. And ideally, if you're with a person who's open to exploring those conversations with you, you can build a relationship of deeper intimacy with one another. Now, one of the fundamental principles in Know Thyself, and you literally have to rewind this and watch it over and over again, centers around self-awareness. Now, what does self-awareness look like? Well, it's recognizing one's fears, one's insecurities, one's negative patterns, one's negative beliefs, one's judgments of other people, how our actions have collateral damage, how our choices can affect other people. That's self-awareness. Self-awareness is the recognition that we are the actor on the stage, on the play. We are the director of the play. That's the ego. Oftentimes the actor and the director are in conflict with one another. Where the other actors are just mirrors of ourselves. And then lastly, self-awareness is to be the audience member witnessing the play of your life. That's true self-awareness. This is ninja level relationship skills, This requires a deep dive into healing your childhood wounds and your adult traumas. If you haven't read the book, The Hoffman Process, I highly recommend reading this book. Again, all the books are listed below. The Hoffman Process. This will take you weeks upon weeks upon weeks to unpack all of the nooks and crannies of the fucked up shit that happened in your life. And then I invite you to read this book, The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. Oh my God, this is a great book to learn how to talk to the voices in your head. Folks, if you're not doing this for yourself, then you will not be able to recognize that relationship-ready person. You might end up sabotaging something because you're not self-aware to recognize that our actions oftentimes are counterintuitive. I can't tell you how many women I've spoken to. They're in relationship with married men. These are clearly men that are not ready, and yet they claim that they're capable of a relationship, but these men are married. And yet somehow they whitewash that, and that's just one example of hundreds of ways that we do things counterintuitive to what we want. One of the fundamentals of Know Thyself is to take ownership of your the endings of your past relationship, to take ownership of that. You know, very few people do that. Very few people take ownership. And relationship readiness, I've written this down. Relationship readiness is, and someone write this in the chat box. It's when your desire, your capacity, and your vision of partnership, not companionship, but partnership, exceeds the fear and pain of past hurts. Fear and pain of past hurts. Also, it requires having a victor consciousness mentality instead of a victim consciousness, having the capacity to communicate, having good relationship skills, knowing your deal breakers and your must-haves, and knowing your inner purpose in life. That's stage one of Know Thyself. Stage two is knowing your motive. Do you have a short-term motive or a long-term motive? If you have a long-term motive for a relationship, then you operate completely different than those who have a short-term motive. So we have to recognize that mutual attraction is that chemistry. And believe me, there is a deception within chemistry. But there's also a need to learn how to maintain attraction, maintain the fire, because oftentimes relationships fizzle out. So there takes some level of skills to do that. This is why reading all the books that I list behind me is so radically important, because we weren't trained to do this. We weren't schooled on how to be in a healthy, happy relationship. So He says he wants a relationship, but is he really ready? Folks, right here is a link to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. My whole area of expertise is centered around vetting and discernment. And there's a link below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. Your job first is to assess this man's motives. And let me tell you something, folks. You have to be a skilled detective. This is what I teach in my private coaching, how you can become a skilled detective. It is, believe it or not, you have to interrogate people. But Jonathan, I'm told not to interview people. What interrogation simply means how to get to the truth. And we have a back-ass way of doing this. It's all based on attraction and entertainment with one another instead of radical honesty, laying your cards on the table, and the rules of engagement. You know, we men are driven by sex, okay? It's oftentimes the driving force. You got to figure out the difference between, does he just want to get laid or is he wanting something serious? And we men, we can gaslight ourselves. We can radically gaslight ourselves. We don't do this intentionally. This is the nuanced crap that we're dealing with in human behavior and human psychology today. Very few people have done the true inner work to step into their power, to step into something I refer to in my book called self-love. What the heck is self-love anyway? A journey of personal development, self-help, and spiritual work. There's a link below to get a copy of my book. I recommend this because there's a starting point for all of this. One of the other fundamentals to determine if someone is ready is to see if you align with each other on your values. As I said before, your vision for a relationship. Do you share the same passions when it comes to social activities, hobbies, mutual interest, spending time with family and friends? And then let's talk about sex. You know what? People rarely ever have real sexual conversations before, during, and after. Before having sex for the first time, during having sex the first time, and after having sex for the first time. It is so taboo to talk about oftentimes, I'm not saying always, what each other likes and what they don't like. In fact, men are just expected to be stallions in the bedroom and women are expected to be amazing lovers. There's this gigantic, and by the way, for those of us in midlife, look at, folks, I'm a tail end baby boomer. The equipment doesn't work the way it used to. I'm not happy about that. I have to take a blue pill. I'm not happy about that. But we shouldn't be ashamed about our performance. It should be, I'm not saying it should be an act of love, but sex is a way two people join with one another at almost a spiritual level. So we need to have these deeper conversations. And most importantly, as you're building and getting to know someone, is this person becoming your good friend? A good friend is somebody that you can talk to from a heart-centered level. As a good friend is someone that you're unafraid to share at a deeper level. Because ultimately, relationship readiness all centers around building trust with another human being. Building trust, and trust isn't just about fidelity. Trust is, does this person have my best interest at heart? Do I have their best interest at heart? That's the real level of trust. And that requires identifying each other's needs, recognizing the differences, overcoming the threshold barriers, those bumps in the road, and learning the verbal expression of appreciation. Folks, I did a video a few days ago centered around this. Men love women who do this. Men love women who do this. I'm going to say there is a gigantic lack of genuine appreciation in the dating marketplace today. And no wonder we're running around with our heads cut off like chickens. I call it the Hunger Games. It's a fight for the death. And I'm just here to try to put the odds in your favor. How do you know someone is ready? You got to do your own homework for yourself first. And then you can apply what you learn with radical honesty, laying your cards on the table, and the rules of engagement. And this is all something I call is radical honesty, pre-qualifying your prospect, engaging their emotional maturity. That's what I teach in my private coaching. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know if it is. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. Also, make sure on your phone you hit the notification bell as well. And if you want to connect with me directly, links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's a link to follow me on Instagram to get the books I recommend and get my dating vows, all listed below.